So our guest tonight, I'm going to get this correct, is Joe Assell. He is the CEO and co-founder of Golftec, a company with $175 million in revenue, 225 locations in 6 different countries. 2021, Golf Inc. named Joe one of the top 25 most powerful people in golf, and PGA Golf named him one of the executive of the year. So this is going to be a lot of fun. It's a little different format than some of our speaker series. Joe's put together a presentation. He's going to walk around how I built this. So he's going to spend some time talking us through how he built this company and some of the ups and downs going through this company. And I'm going to put the mic back up there so at the end for Q&A, and then please come up to the mic and ask any questions once Joe's done. So please give him a round of applause. Let's go.
All right, thanks for having me. I love doing this. This came about a conversation, I'm going to call you Colleen, probably doctor or something or other, but I had this summer, and I do this at various schools and kind of guest lectures at MBA classes on entrepreneurship. And the easiest way for me to do it is just to tell my story and talk about what I've been through and how we did it. So I came up with this catchy theme, 26 years and 26 minutes. Don't hold me to it. I don't know if I'm going to make 26 minutes, but we're going to jump in, and I'll try to keep everybody awake, and we'll talk about what we've done here. So just a couple quick slides to set the ground. I love to just start with the mission statement for my company because it means everything. It's a simple mission statement to help people play better golf. And I tell my team, if we do this, we'll be really successful. And if we don't, if people don't get better at golf after they come to Golftec, we will fail. We will go out of business. Nobody will have a job if people don't get better. So a lot of companies have these elaborate mission statements with all these fancy words that you kind of have to think too hard to figure out what it really means. In ours, we just get straight to the point to help people play better golf. So we are in the golf instruction business, the golf improvement business. We're #1 in the world. We gave 1.7 million golf lessons last year, and our nearest competitor probably gave like 20,000. I mean, we are by far the most dominant player in golf improvement. Some quick stats: we've given 13 million golf lessons in 6 countries, 38 states, 88 cities. We have 225 what we call centers, which are our retail environment where we give the golf lessons and we fit and sell clubs. And if you look at this orange here, this is the growth of our company based on how many lessons we've given, cumulative over time. If I showed you a sales, actually I have a sales chart in a minute. It looks very similar, but most entrepreneurs, when they're talking to venture capitalists or private equity guys, are like, yeah, we're going to go like this. And the cool thing for us is we did it. This is our chart. These are the real numbers, and this is what we actually did. And we're just going to talk about it a little bit today and how we did it. So this is a typical Golftec. They're just in a retail environment. As I mentioned, we have 225 of these around the world, but mostly in the U.S. So question: who thinks someday you'd like to own a business, run a business, be in charge of a business, start a business? Okay, great. So that's what we're going to talk about. So when that day comes, and you either take the job as a CEO or you're starting your startup, you think it's going to be great, right? You're just going to enjoy this. You're going to build this business. It's going to be this smooth ride. You're going to get to the finish line. You're going to have all this success. But the reality is it's going to go like this. And I've used these slides for years, and they couldn't be more accurate. The thing I like the most, though, is the reality one, the bottom one. You come out higher, right? You come out better, but it's not easy, and it never goes like the smooth route that they talk about. So this is my route. This is my company based on sales. So this is trailing 12-month sales. Every month we land, the last 12 months. From the day we started in 1995 to where we are today. And I'm going to just take you on this journey, as I said, 26 years and 26 minutes, on the good, the bad, the ugly of how we built this. So in the beginning, this is 1995, there was this thing called a computer, and some of you weren't even born yet. And we knew that we could take the way golf had been taught, which had been the same way for hundreds of years, and if we applied technology to it, we could make it better. And the whole goal was to infuse technology into what had just been two people standing together at a golf course and the way golf was taught. It started in the basement of Trails Country Club right down the street. The members kind of liked it, so our goal was, let's open this to the public. We went to a strip mall not far away, and we opened our first location. We didn't know if anybody would show up. We didn't know if we could make them better golfers. We didn't know if we could make a business out of it. And it was every day was an experiment. You can see some of the the early press clippings. We were actually called Driving Obsession in the beginning. We had this prehistoric technology where these metal bars came off your back. But that was pre-internet, really, pre-email. So this was like our highlight of our PR when we got in the newspaper. But in the beginning, it was just an experiment. We didn't know if anybody would come. And so I embarked on what I call the F word in business, which is fundraising, because it's really hard. And the golden rule is in place, which is he who has the gold makes the rules. And if you've got a guy there or a company or a person you're ready to invest in your business and they start naming the terms, you have to listen. And they make the rules. And so unfortunately my animation isn't working, otherwise I'd give you these in better order here. So I raised a few $1,000,000 from some friends and family, some angel investors, some of my customers who thought what we were doing was really cool. And we got rolling along, and now we kind of work our way into the late 90s, and there was this thing called the internet that was coming about, and the dot-com boom was starting to build, and the first ever internet companies were coming out. And as I'm talking to venture capital guys about investing in my business, they're like, this is boring. You have a bricks and mortar business, you're profitable, you're growing at a normal pace. You need to be worth $1 billion. You need to be going public. You need to be going faster. You need to be on the internet. So unfortunately, I listened to them. And I started retooling my business to be an internet business. Our goal was we were going to teach golf over the internet. Our thought was we'd have these kiosks in like a mall or an airport. You step in, you make a golf swing, and your golf swing goes to a warehouse full of golf pros. They critique your swing, and then when you land, there's your golf swing analyzed for you. There's a small problem called bandwidth, that I couldn't get the video over the bandwidth very well, but we were working on it. And then the venture capitalist came to me and said, hey, this is great, but you're 25 years old. You need some senior executives. You need some gray hair on your team. You're too young for us to invest in your business. And which actually I think isn't the case as much today, but it was back then. So I hired 4 expensive people. I put a CEO over me. He brought along a CFO. I hired a head of technology, a head of sales. So now I'm a true dot-com business. We're burning money, profits are gone, we're losing tons of money, and I've got this fancy team, and we've got this kind of working over the internet, and what do you know? Dot-com bust hits. If you guys weren't around for this, the NASDAQ went down 80%. Think of this little correction that we had that's 10% and it feels painful. The NASDAQ went down 80% from peak to trough when the dot-com bust hit. And the tune changed overnight. And now all the venture capitalists are like, well, we want profits. Don't you know you have to make money? And we're not going to invest in this business that's losing money and burning money. So I had to retool the whole business. I fired all the expensive people, but I had a problem. I have a seasonal business. I'm in the golf business. I'm busy when people are playing golf, and I'm not busy when they're not playing golf. So in the winter, we lose money no matter what. Like even a Golftec today that makes $200,000, it'll make $300 in the good time, it'll lose $100 in the bad time, and we'll make $200 for the year. I lose money in the winter no matter what. And we are now heading into this time, and we're out of money because the bubble burst. Nobody wanted to invest, and we were literally on our way to going under. And I talk about the joys of entrepreneurship. I'll remember this day to the day I die. I thought we had like 50 grand in the bank, and I called the bank, and you couldn't check online. So I called the bank, how much money do we have? We had $3,000 in the bank. And I was heading out to lunch with a couple of guys I work with, and as we walk into the restaurant, I detoured into the bathroom and threw up. I was literally, my stomach had turned. I thought we were days from being done. We weren't going to make payroll, and it was, I thought it was the end. But we made it, and a lot of why we made it is thanks to the gentleman whose name is on your music school, the Robert and Judy Newman Center for the Performing Arts. Bob Newman gave me a loan. He lent Golftec $500,000, and he said, "You've got until this runs out." No one else believed in us. No one else would invest in us, and I had $500,000 to get me either to get the business profitable, where we could make it, or get me to an investor where we could move on. And every time I give this speech, his name makes my speech, because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. He gave us the lifeline that we needed, and we made it. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take you on our ups and downs. So this was crisis number one. So crisis number one was when the dot-com crash hit and we weren't profitable, and I needed some money to get through, and we were weeks from probably ceasing to exist. So then some good things happened, and we had what I call the three defining moments of that era. So we found some money. I found a great investor, the Gart family here in Denver. Any of you who are from Denver know years ago we had Gart Brothers Sporting Goods. It is what became the Sports Authority. They're up 3 generations. The guys I deal with are in their 60s, and they're the 3rd generation. It's been a legacy family in Denver, and they had sports retail experience. They built one of the largest sporting goods chains in the country, and they came in as great strategic advisor, value-added board member, and righted the ship. Pumped a lot of capital into our business and got it. So we, for the first time, we started in 1995 and they invested in 2001. First time in 6 years we could not worry about payroll, but we could worry about what's the right thing to do for the company and building a business. That was the first. The second is we partnered with Golfsmith. So Golfsmith was the largest golf retail chain in America. They ran big box golf retail stores, and we started putting Golftecs inside their stores. So it was fast access to customers. The day we opened, they had 100 people a day walking in their stores. It was cheap real estate because they already had the store built out, and we just had to put in a few bays. They didn't have to go build out an entire space within a strip mall. And they had marketing going, and it was a really great strategic partner. We started opening inside of all their stores. And then we started franchising. So we owned all of the first 15 or so Golftec's ourselves as we made mistakes and kind of figured out the business model. And then we started offering franchising, and we thought it was a good idea. So our goal was, you have a local entrepreneur who's going to show up every day and work hard and have skin in the game. You'd have somebody local, which is important. Our number one source of business is word of mouth. So we found the right locally connected person. Maybe they're a member at a country club or active in the business community. They can tell all their friends to come in. And then we also had people that we could tell were on spy missions. So we had people come in. We'd gotten to like 15 locations, as I said, and kind of making some news. And people would come in, and they weren't asking questions like, can you fix my slice? They were like, well, how many lessons a day do you give? And how many employees do you have? And what's your rent? And we could tell they were thinking of knocking us off. So we took all of that potential competition and brought them on our team as franchisees. So now we had Golftec's all across America rather than potential competitors across America. And so those 3 things were 3 big initiatives in kind of early 2000s that really set us on this growth path. And so I want you to think about this chart as if it just stopped right here. So what if it was the whole page? You can see the path we were on. It kind of looks small today, but at the time it was massive. We were growing like crazy. And we went on, we opened 77 centers in 2 years. Every 9 days we opened a new Golftec. As we had capital, we had franchisees, we were opening inside the Golfsmiths. And then the 2008 financial crisis hits. Now, we were making money, but a lot of the money we were making is because we were selling a lot of franchises. And we get this big upfront franchise fee. They pay us a big fee to buy their market or buy their city, and we'd sell them all of our software. Which, by the way, the money we burned in the late 90s trying to be a .com actually paid dividends, because now we own tens of millions of dollars worth of proprietary software and technology. And today I have a 30-person software development business in Vietnam that powers all of our proprietary technology. So almost going under did pay some dividends. All the money we burned on software actually still is the legacy of our business. But we were making about $3 million just free cash flow on our franchisees and in the opening of new franchises. And when the financial crisis hit, the bank shut down, franchisees couldn't get a loan anymore, their stocks plummeted, they couldn't free up any cash, everybody was scared, and franchising came to like a halt, like overnight when the financial crisis hit. And we went from making money back to losing money again. And our sales dropped some, they got 9%. I actually didn't think that was terrible. It proved that we have a fairly affluent clientele, and while maybe they didn't get a new Mercedes that year, they could still afford their couple $1,000s for their golf lessons. And so our customers hung in pretty strong, but our franchising high margin revenue evaporated. And for the second time in our history, we had to lay some people off. We laid people off in the dot-com crash, and then we had to lay people off again, which are two of the worst days in my life. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't had to do it since then, but you know, it was tough. Fortunately, I had a deep-pocketed partner that helped me get through it, that I didn't have the last time besides Bob Newman's loan. So, but that was what I'm calling, you know, crisis number 2. And you can see it in the numbers. You see the dip, right? You can see right there. And at the time, that was painful. It looks pretty small on today's chart, but at the time, that was a material dip in our business that we had to work through. So then, we went on a nice, long growth run. Really long, really healthy, and then unfortunately in 2016, my animation's not working. This is supposed to flip to be upside down, like belly up. Golfsmith went under. So Golfsmith filed for bankruptcy, full liquidation, and we lost 50 Golftechs in 1 month. And not like gone until they reopened, they were gone. Out of business, doors closed. We were in 81 Golfsmiths, and one of their competitors, Golf Galaxy, bought 31 of them. So we continued in 31 Golf Galaxies, but we lost 50 stores in 30 days, and we had to you know, get out there and rebuild. We had some of them where we had an existing Golftec nearby that we absorbed the business into that, but we built 40 new stores in 9 months. We got to 20 cities in 20 days looking for real estate, and had to scramble. And you know, we had about 200 centers, and we went down to 150, you know, just like that. In fact, I'll tell you a funny story. We like to celebrate our successes, and when we opened our 100th location, we bottled some private label wine listing all 100 locations and sent it to about the 400 or so people that kind of helped us get there. And then when we opened our 200th, we did it again. We sent a new bottle of wine to 200 locations, and like 4 months later, they go under and I lose 50. And so it took us like 3 more years until I crossed 200 again, and we joked about like resending our 200th center bottle of wine. So when you look at this again, I've got my Golfsmith bankruptcy, and you can again see it in our numbers. You know, the good news is all this momentum we had kind of powered us through it. So we didn't have too bad of a dip, and we got these centers that went under rebuilt in 9 months. But it was a enormous capital. We had to build 40 centers, kind of somewhat unplanned for. We had about a 6-month notice that it was happening. So then we did what I call kind of my next section of defining events. Remember, I had those 3, which was the Gart investment, the Golfsmith partnership, which ended up going bankrupt, and then franchising powered that first growth run. And then we did our next group of defining events. So we sat down in 2016 or so. It was right before Golfsmith went under, and we really challenged ourselves to try to see the future, which is hard. We said, you know, what will 2021 or 2022 be like? So that would be like saying today, what will 2027 be like? Can you try to imagine what technology everybody's going to be using, what's going to be on your phone, what will culture be like, and what will our competition be doing? But we really identified what we thought were our weaknesses and the things we need to fix, which is we need to refresh our logo, we need to refresh our design, we need to get a lot better at club fitting. We got out of the Golfsmiths, and we eventually got out of the 31 Golf Galaxies that we're in, and the replacement locations, our sales are double at what they were when we were co-located, you know, inside somebody else. So it proved to be, I never would have gone to Golfsmith and said, hey, I'm in 81 of your stores, I want to get out of all of them, I want to end this relationship. I would never have had the guts to do that. But we learned from the first 50 that we didn't have a choice how well we did. And then I went to Golf Galaxy and broke our deal with them, broke our lease, and then we rebuilt 30 more. But sales are double when we run in our own environment, not co-located inside someone else's. And then we brought in GDO. So GDO is a publicly traded company on the Tokyo Stock Exchange. They came in and partially took out the Gart family. The Gart family are still my partners, but GDO came in to be my lead investor. So I went from a family office to a public company as my primary partner, my primary backer. They came in 2018, and they've been a great partner for us, and they're really, pushing us to grow even more. And then the last thing we did is we're buying back our franchises. So our franchises, they're a real headache, to be honest. They don't, they like to deviate, and they think they're making it better by changing, and all they do is make the business worse. And the more they deviate, the more their sales go down. And the little royalty stream I get from them, I get 5% of sales and then another 4% into an advertising fund, doesn't add up to enough, and it's not worth the headache. Where if we own it ourselves, we own the entire bottom line. We own 100% of the business, and we're trying to build a really big company, and you need a really big bottom line, and to do that we need to own the center. So we've been buying back the franchises for about 6 or 7 years now. I've only got 38 left. We own the rest of all the centers, except the international ones. But I've only got 38 left in the US, and I bought 16 last year, hopefully buy another 15 this year, and I'm winding that down. And the goal is that we're 100% company owned. So if you look at, I'll show you again in a minute, but that first big growth wave was because I had the Gart family as my partners. We opened in all the Golfsmiths, and I offered franchising, and 2 of the 3 are done. We stopped selling franchises, Golfsmith went under, and the Gart family is unwinding with the public company coming in. So your business evolves as it grows, and you go through stages. Don't regret any of those. I would have gone in Golfsmith again. It powered our growth. Don't regret franchising. It made us #1 in the world in what we do. But now that we have the size and the scale and the capital to do other things, we're shifting the business. And so what you see is just a couple examples of these. We had this logo for 20 years. It was fine. This new one on the right is a little sexier, and hopefully lasts us another 20 years before we have to evolve. It cost us about $3 million just to change our logo. We had to put up 200 new signs. We had to buy 15,000 shirts. All of our coaches wear shirts with the Golftec logo, much less mouse pads and business cards and everything. But we didn't think this logo was ready for the future, and we needed to modernize. I don't have a before and after, but our interior design was kind of old and stale, and we needed to modernize our interior. This is what they all look like now. We started putting in these shaft walls, so you have shafts and heads separately, so you have tens of thousands of combinations, so we literally can customize the right golf club for anybody in the world. Before, we just had a couple bags of clubs, but they were glued together, and you had no adjustability or not very much. And now we have tens of thousands. In the 4 years since we did this, our golf club sales have gone up 400%. Since we put in this modular wall. Again, we had to remodel all of our centers to put this in, but the investment has paid off. So you look at this now, modernize our branding, new centers, club fitting, got out of the Golfsmiths, partnered with a public company. You can see this ramp that we've been on now, where it's really accelerated, and we're rocking along pretty good, growing substantially. And then crisis number 4 hits. Right, so now this is, you guys maybe couldn't relate when there was no internet, but you can relate to this one, right? We've all been living this here, and we were closed. So we were in the non-essential businesses when it first hit, and I like to think we're essential, but the government didn't think we were. So we were lights off, doors locked, 0 sales, 0 business for about 65 days. We closed all across America and the world. Actually, we're closed in Hong Kong right now because of COVID. But we closed over about a 2-week period, and then we reopened over about a 45-day period as certain states started reopening. I think New York was our last state in the U.S. to get back open. It wasn't until late June that we got back open. But what you can see is literally the drop in our business. I mean, we had no sales. So you're trailing 12 months when you're replacing it with zeros. And it was late March into mid-June, which is the busiest time of the year for us. Everybody's getting ready for the golf season. Everybody wants new clubs and golf lessons. And we closed at the most prime time in the whole year. And the one thing I had on the previous slide, the one decision we made I'll go back, is this bottom point. We did not lay anybody off. So we said, the number one way we're going to rebound whenever we get back open is we need our customers to return. And the number one way for our customers to return is our coaches have to be there, our golf pros. And so if we laid off hundreds and hundreds of golf pros and they went and found different things and didn't all come back, our rebound would have been significantly different. So spent about $8 million with zero sales coming in to keep everybody. But then you can see this needle point rebound now that we have coming out of it. So a lot of people say, well, golf is booming because there's one of the things you could do outside and you're socially distanced and everybody's moving out of the cities and nobody goes to their office anymore, so when you work at home you can sneak out and play golf, and all these lifestyle trends that are supporting golf. And they certainly are part of it. So on this slide, I actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. They certainly help, but I'd like to say, we're pretty smart too. We're not having all this success just because of COVID. If you look at our trend, from right here to that point, it's basically right on the path we were on. Once we got back open, we just got back to the same trend and the same path that we're on. But for my team, it went from crisis of we're closed to chaos of, if you look at valley to peak, just how literally like straight up our business has gone since we got reopened. And frankly, I would say now we're a beneficiary of COVID, and I'm sorry to say that for other businesses that have had trouble. If you're in the restaurant business or the gym business or the hotel business, it's been a rough go, but we've been on the right side of this one, and we've had our share of crisis along the way, but this one, I thought it was crisis number 4, but it's turned out to be a real benefit for us. The other thing we did throughout this is as a company, we constantly innovate. Relentlessly, as I mentioned, I have a 30-person software development team, mainly in Vietnam. But we invented a way to measure your body movement only optically, only through cameras. So for the first 25 years we've been in business, you had to put this kind of backpack thing on with some straps and these cords that went off the back, and we had a thing that broadcast a magnetic field, and the straps had these sensors in it, and we measured where you moved in a magnetic field. All of our instruction has always been based on measurement. So never will you get somebody's opinion or theory or philosophy. You're going to get factual data compared to, we tested 200 PGA Tour players with a measurement system. So we have a factual model of what the best players in the world do. It's really the reason we've been able to scale around the world, is it's all measurable and standardized. But we had to have all these straps. Well, in COVID, our coach couldn't get within 6 feet of our customer. You didn't want to put the straps on that somebody 30 seconds earlier had been wearing. So we went to no data for a while and just kind of video only. But we invented, and it had been in the works ahead of time, but a way to measure data only optically, only with our cameras. And now you can step right in, and our coach can keep his distance. And this is just powering our continued evolution. And so. As I said, whoever built this slide for me put lifestyle changes in there. I think it's really just a continuation of the trend that we were on with all these changes, really all of these things, all of this investment we made in the business along the way. So last couple of things, where are we going next? We're building 30 new centers this year. We're going to grow pretty significantly. We are massively pumping our content marketing. We had 90 million views last year on our social channels and YouTube, to the point where we built a studio. So another change when COVID hit, I took out 20 desks because people are working at home now, and I built a full TV production studio. It has 3 sets. It has a sports bar to interview celebrities and tour pros. It has a putting green area, and then it has a full hitting bay. And we're there and they're filming today. We film content relentlessly. As marketing, as you all know, is evolving. It's not just buying ads anymore. It's quite a bit different. So you'll see a lot more content from us. We launched an e-commerce offering only to our customers initially. Eventually it'll be to everyone, but we have 650,000 people in our database that we're now starting to sell all stuff to. I learned if my whole business is bricks and mortar, that can get shut down. So we needed to diversify our revenue. So we just launched 2 months ago. Next is Golftec Anywhere, which is an enhanced mobile app. And then the main thing is we're working on what we're calling Golftec at Home, which think Peloton for golf. So we'll have a device that sits in your house that records your swing and has the data on your swing, measures where your ball goes. You'll have every morning a golf exercise video you should do to build your strength for golf. You'll have your golf lessons, you'll have your content. You'll be able to bet against your buddies down the street who have the same thing in their house. You'll be able to play golf with your buddies all around the world. It'll be full golf course simulation, but it'll be as we're calling it, Golftec at Home. It'll allow anybody in the world to be part of Golftec and not have to come to one of our centers. We think the world can hold 750 Golftecs at 225 today, so we can grow. I joke but it's true. We can open a Golftec every other week for about 25 years. So there's no end in sight to our bricks and mortar growth, but we are not going to be only bricks and mortar as we launch e-commerce, a better mobile app, and then Golftec at Home. So, and then the last, I didn't want to come tonight and not talk about some of our community initiatives. We call it Golftec Cares. And there's a lot in there, but it's where it was the brackets we put around all of our community efforts. Last year we donated $2 million to various causes, mainly helping people, but through golf, and donations to Wounded Warriors and a lot of diversity initiatives in our through our golf efforts through Golftec Cares. Okay, so back to where we started. Sounds great, but it's full of pitfalls. And the more, I've used this for years, before my chart even looked like it does. And now every day my chart starts to look more like this one. It's scary how much my COVID drop looks like this one. So I hope it's my last one, right? Now I'm just on my way to the finish line. But so who still wants to be an entrepreneur? Okay, you might have to throw up in a bathroom in a restaurant somewhere. Okay, so let me give you my last couple thoughts, not Golftec specific, but just about being an entrepreneur. And this is the stuff that you guys are all smarter than me. You're going to have a better degree than I have, but this is the stuff that isn't in your classroom or your textbook. This is just for me, what it has taken over the years. So start with, like 95% of startups fail. Right? So how do you not fail? The easiest is never run out of cash. It's as simple as that, right? It's really, you can get as fancy of MBAs you want, but don't run out of cash and you don't fail. So I actually advise some startups, and every call I have with them is, where's your cash? Even if it's a lot, that's like number one. But God, I wish I had an animation working, but diligently plan and financially plan. It's still going to go wrong, but if you don't at least have a plan that you're following, then it's much harder to react when things go wrong if you don't have a plan to work off of. Don't get over leveraged. The only time I was burning money was when I almost went under. Watch your overhead. As I mentioned, we had to do 2 layoffs. And I'll tell you a story. My first investor was an uncle of mine. He's a really successful businessman in Chicago, and doesn't play golf. Never played golf. But he could tell I was onto something when we were getting going. And when he handed me the check, he's like, I don't know shit about golf. He's like, but I do know business, and I'll tell you one thing: watch your overhead. That was like his only business advice. It's still burned in. And both times I had to do layoffs, I heard him echoing in there, watch your overhead. I got too big. We weren't able to sustain the dip. So spend your money on what matters. Watch your overhead. Pay attention to the details without getting too paralyzed. You got to know your business, but you can't get stuck in everything forever. One of my favorites: don't get too confident or arrogant. I have a buddy that's in Silicon Valley, and he says as soon as a company puts their name on a building, that's when he sells their stock, because they get too proud and they get too arrogant. You're not going to gain anything from that. It's zero. So it doesn't do you any good. You lose all of your focus. And I'm scared all the time. Like, I am always thinking to the negative. I'm possibly making an acquisition right now. They were in my office all day today, and they wanted to talk about how great it was. I'm like, I don't even want to talk about that. Like, what's going to go wrong here? What's going to go wrong here? And I'm constantly living in fear of what could go wrong. And then my last point, never run out of cash. It's just pretty much as simple as that. So what else? So how do you grow? So I went from 1 employee, me, in 1995. I did $90,000 in sales. Now we do that in like an hour, but it took me a whole year to do $90,000 in 1995. And this year we have 1,000 employees. We'll do over 200 million this year. So how do you scale that? How do you manage that? So it's not going to be smooth. So as soon as you acknowledge that, kind of the whole theme of my earlier comments, and you're ready for whatever happens, that's step number 1. But the chaos can be good. The chaos of COVID honestly was great for us. It made us launch that optical-based motion tracking, which, guess what? That's going to takes 2 cameras right now, but as soon as it runs on 1 camera, that's what's going to power our Golftec at Home. So now from your house through the one camera on your phone, when I can get the data on your swing, we can use AI to teach anybody to teach you golf anywhere in the world. That's all because we had to develop camera-based motion tracking, not sensor-based, due to COVID, and now it's going to launch the whole next wave of our business. So when things go wrong, it really can be good. When Golfsmith went under, never would have had the guts to break that deal. I was in 81 of their stores, but now all of my replacements are doing twice the sales and twice the profit. So chaos can be good. You just have to figure out how to do that. To help you scale fast, so systems are important. So documented processes, metrics, rules, ways to measure your business helps you keep it on the rails. And people are key. So I always say it takes two things to build a business: capital and great people. It's really those two things. So a lot of people say, well, you need an idea, or you need a patent, or you need something that's different. Well, where do you think those come from? They come from the people. I lose my screen. I'm still good here. So I'll so my last, no, it's back. But who you hire is important. So when I'm hiring people, I'm not hiring the resume as much. I'm not hiring where they've been. I mean, they need to have the skills that is needed for the job, but I'm hiring what's inside them. I'm hiring somebody that's going to be on my team, that's going to be shoulder to shoulder with me, that's going to fight hard, that fits into my culture, it doesn't disrupt my culture, and gets in and rows in the same direction with us. So the people I hire, their passion, their attitude is super important. And if I have great people, I feel like we can really accomplish pretty much anything. And then my last piece is trust your gut. So the one people ask me all the time, what have you learned? Well, one of the things I've learned is I listened to too many other people. So I listened to the venture capital guys who said, hire these expensive people and become a .com company. And I've listened to other people along the way. But if it's your business, you know it the best. And trust yourself. Trust that what you think you should be doing, you're right. And make the decision yourself. And certainly listen to others. But one of the key pieces of advice I give people is trust yourself and trust your gut. It's your business. So the last couple things you're going to hear this from anybody. Perseverance, it's going to be hard. So if you're going to start a company, just be ready for it. And if you can't handle it, don't do it. Join another company that's growing fast and be a key member of the team. But somebody told me one time, don't sit in the seat if you can't take the heat. And you have to be able to persevere. You have to hustle. What am I doing on time? I'll tell you a quick story. So it goes with my don't take no. So we had a Golftec in Boston that it was owned by a franchise, and there's a strip mall with only 3 units in it, and it sits right on the highway. Imagine if it was like right on I-25, and the two neighbors had these big, huge signs facing the highway. So all the cars go by saw their signs, and we didn't have a sign. My franchise didn't have a sign, and God, why would he do this? And he says, well, there's only so much allowable square footage of signage, and the two neighbors took it all. So we're not allowed by city code to have a sign. I'm like, that's not acceptable. I don't care what the city code is. That's not acceptable. So we went to city council and we got shot down, and we went again and we got shot down, and we hired these consultants and we got shot down. And we gotta have to find a way to get a sign. So we started giving the mayor golf lessons, and then we gave the alderman golf lessons, and then we hired a law firm that happens to be connected with city council, and they show up for the approval, and they got thrown out. They're like, how many times is this company coming back for a sign? They threw them out. I don't even remember how we did it, but somehow we finally got a sign. And the sign permit for our sign to go up is framed in my office still today as proof of don't take no for an answer, because there is a way to get it done. There's always a way. Last thing for me is, you're going to be around a long time, and integrity is so important. And you may have, you're young in your careers now, but things come back 20 years later. In fact, I mentioned this company that I may be buying. I used to do business with these guys 20 years ago, and we broke up our relationship with them, and now the CEO is going to work for me. And if I would have ended that poorly 20 years ago, I may not have this opportunity that I have today. So I can't emphasize how you treat people and integrity. It's a 30 or 40 year game, and you can't screw it up. You've only got one chance, and it's incredibly important. The last thing is, You have to stay calm. So there are days when you want to freak out. You got to go home and freak out. But to your team, you're the leader, and you've got to be the one that is confident and stays calm, no matter what happens. So I think, so then my last thing. So number one, love what you do. If you don't like what you're doing, do something different. Life is way too short to dread every morning. I play the lottery, but I joke, like if I won the lottery and won $100 million, I go to my office tomorrow. Because I love it. I just love what I do. Find a way to put yourself in that situation. If you do that, you'll be super successful. Once you're in that situation, be honest, respect others, have passion, work hard. We're a pretty successful company. I still work 60, 70 hours a week. I am still the guy that turns the alarm off in the morning at 6:15 when I walk in, even though I've got 80 other people that come to that office. I beat everybody to the office. It's because I love it. But you can't replace hard work and hustle and passion and perseverance. It's all these intangibles. It's the things you're not going to learn in a book, but it's the intangibles if you want to try to build something that's never been done. Nobody's ever done what we're doing. There's single locations. No one has more than maybe 2. We have 225. It takes a lot of perseverance to figure out how to do that. So I can go on forever, but I think I'm done. So that's not quite 26 minutes, but hopefully our story and a little bit of what we've been through. And for me, it's the easiest way to talk about being an entrepreneur is just talking about what we've done. So I've got some time. I'd love to answer any questions that anybody has or discussion.
Feel free to use the microphone or just stand up, either way.
First, I want to say congratulations on all your success, and that was a great presentation. I had a question about your plan. So, at what stage did you plan? I know you said plan ahead. At what stage did you decide you want to take this to the next level, make over $100 million? Like, was it so long?
I don't know that there was a day, but I'll tell you kind of a funny story. So when we built it, I had a partner, and we were both from the Midwest, and our dream was to have 10 locations in this kind of Midwest-based golf teaching company. I would leave Denver. We started in Denver, but I was going to leave, and we're going to, like Chicago, Milwaukee, St. Louis, Indianapolis. We dominate the Midwest, and that was like this dream. Well, we got rolling, and before we knew it, we were, well past that. So, one night, I remember this, we're on the back patio of my house. We'd had too many beers, and we're like, we might have 100 of these someday. You're like, this is great, And we blew through 100, almost went under a couple times along the way, and now it's super sophisticated. I have a whole demographics team. I know everywhere I can put them. I know how many I'm going to have. Our financial modeling is 4 years out right now, and it's MBA level, very sophisticated. When did I decide along the way? I think I'm just driven to keep going, and now we're going to add e-commerce. We're hoping we're going to acquire another company. We're going to build the at-home version. I can build 500 more locations, and there's really no stop now. I don't know when to literally answer your question when it happened, but we certainly joked and dreamed along the way, and it just kept becoming reality along the way.
That's great, thank you.
When did you first get introduced to golf, and is it still like a passion of yours today, like playing golf?
It is. So I'm very fortunate. My dad is a big golfer, and he got me into it when I was 6 or 7 or 8 years old, and I used to go to the golf course with him all the time. I actually went to college for golf. My major was called Professional Golf Management, which is basically a business degree tailored to the golf industry. Mainly people who major in this are like head pros at country clubs or resorts, but you could also work for Titleist or something like that, but it's a golf business degree. So I went to college, and I had to do 3 internships as part of the requirements to graduate, and my dream was to be a golf pro, and after doing my internships, I realized I didn't want to be a golf pro, which is why you do internships, right? You get good and bad experience, and I decided I would rather be a member at the country club than the guy working at the country club, and so I was thinking of getting out of golf and going into finance or something, and then this opportunity came along to do this, but my dad got me into it when I was young, and then just so fortunate to combine a passion for business and a passion for golf into what I wake up and do every morning. And I still play a lot. Ski and mountain bike too, we were talking about this earlier.
So your mission is to help people play better golf, and it's important to have really good instructors for that. So like, what is your criteria as far as like hiring instructors to make sure that like customers are getting the best?
Yeah, so great question. Yeah. So I'm the second largest employer of golf pros in the world. Employ, about 900 golf pros. So the kind of official certification of a golf pro is if you're a PGA pro. Kind of like you can say you're an accountant, but if you pass the CPA exam, then you're a CPA. Well, anybody can say they're a golf pro, but if you pass about 3 years worth of training, you're a PGA pro. So about 75% of our coaches are PGA pros, but there's not quite enough for me to fill all my openings. So I have golf pros who are either starting the PGA program or maybe didn't finish it, but they're hopefully are going to join that. So you have to be a golf pro to start with. When we look at golf pros, the number one thing we look for is personality. We look for people who are great with people because they're in the bay giving golf lessons one-on-one all day long. So we hire personalities, and then we built Golftec University. So Golftec University is a 6-week training program that anybody we hire has to go through before we let them teach a paying customer. Even if you're a famous instructor, the guy who teaches Tiger Woods, it doesn't matter. If you want to work for us, you have to go through Golftec University. It's stringent. We have testing. We fail people. We unhire people that can't make it through the 6 weeks before we let them go. In our corporate offices, we have stadium seating classrooms built around like a hitting bay. So it's live hands-on training on how to do everything. So we look for golf pros with good personalities, and then we train them the rest of the way.
Could you see Golftec partnering with a company like Topgolf, or would you see them more as a big competition?
They're not necessarily a competitor. I know those guys pretty well. I think they're growing golf quite a bit. They're really fueling golf. I think it's fantastic what they're doing. In fact, what they call off-course golf, so it could be any golf not at a golf course. So it could be a Topgolf or it could be in your garage. Has tripled in the last 5 years. I think a lot of it is due to them. So right now they're trying to offer their own lessons, but they've told me if it doesn't work, I'm their first phone call. So we'll see. They just got a new CEO, so that may change as well. But I know those guys well, but I'm rooting for them because I think they're creating a lot of golfers.
Thank you.
There's one over here.
So when you were younger, and when you were 25, you brought in that executive team. Obviously, you had a lot of experience trying to cloud your vision or trying to speak over what your plans were. What would your recommendations be for balancing your vision versus the experience?
So I think, advisory board or board is the right way to do that. And maybe even somebody in there who's a mentor that you get a lot of time from, regularly. I just don't know that I would hire somebody over me again, back then.
Women make up about 23% of golf players. What kinds of initiatives do you have in place to attract this, what I would say is an underserved market?
Completely, and we're not very good at it. So only about 13% of my customers are female. So I have even more opportunity to grow within the the women's space. So we have we've tried different initiatives along the way, as simple as having more females in all of our marketing, which is just shame on us. We didn't even have that in the early days, and now we're more diverse. We try hard in our hiring, but there just frankly aren't many female golf pros, and they get bid up even higher by the country clubs because every country club wants to have at least one female pro on their team, and so it's actually kind of a reverse glass ceiling for female assistant pros. They're making more than the guys in some instances, so it's hard for us to get them. But we're trying to add to our diversity in our hiring as well. And then we have had some like ladies' nights and things, but they're illegal now. At least in California, you can get sued if you have ladies' nights because it's discriminatory. So now we have to figure out how to work around that. So we're doing different things, but I would tell you we're not allocating 25% or 23% of our energy around it like we probably should be.
Do you see opportunities in partnering with like the LPGA or?
We do, and so we are actually adding quite a few LPGA players as Golftec ambassadors. That's one thing that we are doing. adding players as ambassadors.
Will they be wearing your logo or?
The up-and-comers will be. So I think there's a lot of risk if I sponsor like a star player, and then they start playing terrible. It could have nothing to do with us, right? You could be injured or going through a divorce or who knows what. But I think if a rock star player, male or female, puts the Golftec logo on and their game plummets, it could be disastrous. If you're wearing Toyota on your hat or IBM, big deal. But if you're wearing a golf instruction company, so I'm not putting my brand on the star players because I think there's too much risk, even if it has nothing to do with us. But we are putting our brand on a lot of up-and-comers. In fact, in case there's any super golf fans in here, there's a guy named Mark Baldwin that just Monday qualified into the AT&T tournament at Pebble Beach this week, finished like 31st, made a bunch of birdies, was all over social media, and we had just picked him up on like the Tuesday before the tournament last week. So he was wearing our stuff on yesterday. It was just a last-minute sponsorship that we did, but up-and-comers. So there's a group called The Grind. It's 25 up-and-coming players that they're doing a whole season-long video series on how they make it and sleeping in their cars and going broke and trying to make it in pro golf. And we're picking up, we sponsored the whole thing overall, and now we're picking up some of the players. And it's about half female in the people in The Grind.
Yeah, I have a question about your software. So where do you guys see your software going? I've seen some stuff you're doing with, I think it's Uplift Labs, but that tracking software, I think for sure could go a long ways with how you're measuring metrics. And
yeah, in fact, I didn't mention this. So our optical, we had 2 partners. We use a group called Uplift that they help with what's called key pointing, so finding the right points. And then our main consultant is out of DU. There's a biomechanist group here. Mike Decker runs it, and they did a lot of the consulting. They are still under contract to advise us on a lot of the AI, because most camera-based motion tracking, you need 8 cameras. You need 2 cameras from all 4 sides, and we're trying to do it with only 2 total. So what you have to do when a certain body part goes out of a view of a camera, you have to use AI and machine learning to know where that was moving. So we pumped millions of swings from our censored system into the software to teach it when it looks like this, here's where it's going. And the DU group helped us with a lot of that, a lot of the software to do that. So where is it going? It's going to single camera first. So as soon as we can do it on just your phone, and then it will go to heavily AI powered. When your data comes in, we can send you all the content back that you need to get better.
I was curious more about, like, have you seen any other applications that you can use that for?
Oh yeah, so we have some patents that are on all sports. So we could launch tennis or baseball or whatever. Frankly, it's a distraction, and we've been very successful because we've stayed focused. I can still build 500 more Golftec's and launch a lot of new things. And to go chase some other sport, I think would be too big of a distraction. So we actually, when we wrote our patents, they don't say golf, they say athletic motion, so they can apply to various other sports. But I'm not chasing those at the moment. Sorry, somebody back here, you've been trying all night.
Have you guys considered going into virtual reality?
We have. I think it'll be part of the Golftec at home experience, for sure. Sir.
So these at-home golf bays seem to be like, the Peloton, but it's a lot more expensive. So, any opportunity there for working with remodeling companies or builders to build that in at the get-go?
Yeah, I didn't think about it from the get-go. So it's interesting, there's kind of 2 parts to that business. And by the way, we're going to develop it, I think, very cost-effectively. We've been using Peloton as our example until their stock has completely plummeted here lately. But they've kind of been like, would be the Peloton for golf. But there's first is the 2 pieces of technology there, the technology that measures things. The ball launch monitor, where's the ball going, how's it spinning, and the data we need to know what happened. And then our software that will measure where your body goes. That stuff is going to be very affordable. The part that gets expensive is the net and the projector and the turf and all of that. And there's a lot of demand. I think if somebody can start a company that is kind of helps people outfit all that stuff, they would be very successful, because people can buy the tech piece, but then there's no way to, you know, install it in their home. Is actually kind of a gating factor to this. I think that'll get solved, but they are blowing up in people's houses, and so our goal is, as people build these things, they can now choose Golftec at home as the whole experience package that you get. I think the content's going to be the difference in that game. There's going to be a lot of people with simulators, but what experience do you get via your technology will be the difference maker.
Just overall, what's your biggest danger you want to eliminate to keep your growth happening moving forward?
I don't know about eliminate. My biggest factor is continuing to hire golf pros. Hired 240 last year. I have to hire about 250 this year, and I need a steady stream of golf pros. That's our. That hasn't been limiting yet, but that's probably my biggest risk factor that could be limiting.
How do you think about your competition? Is it like golf pros and country clubs? Is it the technology?
Yeah, great question. I view technology as enabling our competition. So if somebody comes out with a camera or whatever, they're just helping the golf pro. So my competition, I don't have any national competition on the golf lesson side. It's local. It's the pro at the golf course, public or private. You want to take a golf lesson, you're going to go to the golf course near you, or you're going to come to us. On the golf club sales side, which is about 25% of my business, I do now have a competitor called Club Champion. They're building club fitting centers. They have about 90 locations, so they're not quite to half of our size, but they are growing, and they are taking, not really from us, but they are taking market share on the club fitting side. So I worry about them on the golf club side. I don't have a single competitor I'm focused on the teaching side.
And sorry, just as a follow-up. So if your like main competitors, like places that have golf pro usually, right, or one or two.
Yeah.
How do you compete with them for the talent? Like, what's the strategy?
So if you're at a golf course and you're the pro, you also need to fold the shirts and run the tournaments and make sure the driving range balls are picked up and deal with angry customers and whatever it may be. And if that's what you want to do, we're probably not the place for you. But if you want to just make people a better golfer all day long and not worry about that stuff, is one place we win. But the place we really win is quality of life. So the pros of the golf courses work a lot. They have to be there at 5 in the morning when the first golfers show up, and they've got to be there at night. They've got to work weekends because those are the busiest days. So our coaches work about 40 to 45 hours a week. Our coaches all get 2 days off, and one of them is a weekend day, which is like unheard of in golf. But our customers, they play golf on the weekends. My 2 slowest days are Saturday and Sunday. So it works great for me to give my coaches a weekend day off. And we win on our recruiting wars on quality of life all the time. Our compensation is about 10% higher. You may or may not come just for that. But we pay better, quality of life, and then it's got to just be what you want to do, which is make people a better golfer and not worry about, you know, Mrs. Jones who can't find her umbrella and she's all upset. The guys at the golf courses have to deal with that kind of stuff. So.
What's your biggest friction point outside of the hiring? And has there been a consistent thread or continued thread among the years, like from a business?
I would say it used to be capital. Even in the early days when I had to deal with the F word, even along the way, you know, there was always friction between me and my board on the right amount of risk, the right amount of growth pace, the right amount of cap. I mean, frankly, partly why we started selling franchises is I was having a hard time getting the money to build more ourselves, and the franchisees paid for the growth. But that really isn't as much of an issue anymore. We're just doing great. We have a tremendous amount of cash flow. We're recycling all of it back into growth, and we're kind of stepping on the gas pretty heavy right now. But until just the last few years, I would say just reins from board and use of capital and use of capital was, and I think that's the case in pretty much every business in the world. But that was a big factor for us.
We got time for one more question.
Okay, I saw an orange arm that hasn't asked a question.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, can you go into detail on like the stages of funding?
Sure, so like friends and family, angel investing, so we went, my uncle gave me my first check, and then some of my customers, and and some of their friends and kind of angel investors were writing checks in the $25,000 to $100,000 range. I put together $3 million that way. Bob Newman was a little bit of that, and then when I got in deep trouble, he came in with $500,000 to bridge me to make it. Then a lot of times you go from there to venture capital. Instead of that, I went with a family office. It was kind of similar, but they came in with $4.5 million was their first investment. They fueled a little more along the way. And then often you go from venture capital to private equity as you are bigger and more mature. I skipped private equity and went straight to a public company as my partner. They've been my partner for 4 years now. So is that what you were asking? Kind of the stages? And then really prior to friends and family, well, my co-founder and I were funding the first, little bit of money. I borrowed mine from my uncle, who wasn't really an investor. He lent the money to me before we went to friends and family. So it's kind of founder funded in the very beginning. So a lot of debt, which is bad. One of the reasons I threw up, because thought I was going to go bankrupt when I was 27 years old because we were going under and I had all these loans I had taken out. So a lot of lessons.
I have one question to finish it off, and I must say I always prepare a bunch of questions, so I'm not sure where the audience is going to be. The questions tonight were amazing. Well done. So we have a lot of young adults here. They're either undergrad, grad, maybe PhD students, kind of trying to figure out what's next. Internships, figuring out careers. You think back to 22 years old. What do you tell yourself? What advice do you give yourself?
Back to one of my last points, trust your gut. Right? I really, at least for me, I've listened to myself and it's guided me. I'll never forget. So, my dad got me into golf, right? He's like, thought it was the greatest thing ever that I decided I wanted to be a golf pro. And I was going off to college to major in golf and I was going to be a golf pro. And he was the happiest person on the planet. And I remember after I did my 3 internships and I decided I didn't want to be a golf pro, I went out to dinner with my mom and dad to tell them I don't want to be a golf pro. And I felt like I just crushed my dad because that was like his dream. But it was, my gut was telling me I would rather be in business. I was the guy sitting at school reading the Wall Street Journal and everybody else was reading Golf Magazine and wanting to go play golf. And I just had more of a passion on the business side than, and listening to that and making the change I needed to make, I guess. Then I was fortunate that it all came together. The golf business came together. It was, really fortunate.
Well, thank you. Will you hang out for a couple minutes
Sure.
if anybody wants to come up and chat? This was an amazing presentation. Let's give it up for Joe. This is awesome.